He's 1,000% Trump. I think he expects to maybe go back to a job in a couple years. By the way, I'm rambling here, but I'm going to ramble. Nobody can beat Trump in a Republican primary. It's not going to happen. They can't beat Trump in a primary. It's ridiculous. Trump will be our nominee, and then he'll be president. But anyway, please give a warm Kentucky welcome to our featured speaker tonight, Thomas Homan, Trump's ICE director.
How y'all doing? This is my first trip to Kentucky. If I say anything tonight that offends anybody, I don't care. Just so you know. I say what I think. You know, I've been trying to cancel me since I worked for President Trump. You can't cancel me if you don't give a shit. And I don't. My wife asks me all the time, does it bother you to have the country hate your guts? No. Because they don't know what I know. So I go around the country doing a lot of things. I give a lot of speeches for the GOP. I give a lot of speeches for President Trump, and who happens to be the greatest president in my lifetime. And if you don't like Trump, then you don't like me, because I'm a Trump guy. And matter of fact, I spoke at his rally in Robstown, Texas about 3 weeks ago. And I ended my speech with this, that I had dinner with President Trump in Las Vegas about 2 months ago. And I told him then, I told him at the rally, he comes back, I come back, we fix this shit on the border. Because what's happening on the border is on purpose. So now, so anybody don't know, this is what's happening on the border. I wake up every day pissed off, and people ask me all the time, why are you so pissed off on TV? And when I testify in front of Congress, because Joe Biden's the first president in the history of this country who came into office and unsecured the border. Think about that. I've worked for 6 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan. I worked for 6 of them. Even President Obama and President Clinton took steps to secure the border. They campaigned on it. They took steps. They didn't take a lot of steps. Well, they tried because they understood you can't have national security if you don't have border security. They got it, and they took certain steps. No one did more than President Trump. President Trump had illegal immigration down 83%. Down 83%. 40-year low. That's unprecedented. No president was able to achieve that. Then Joe Biden came in. We handed him the most secure border in my lifetime. And he tore it down on purpose. What commander-in-chief of the greatest country on earth doesn't want a secure border? What commander-in-chief wants more illegal immigration? More illegal drug flow, more female migrants getting raped by the cartels, more children drowning in the river, more Americans dying from drug overdoses than any time in the history of this nation. It all goes back to the border. I don't care what your opinion, I say this all the time, I don't care what your opinion is on illegal immigration. When you create a crisis this big, it has resulted in 70 to 80% of agents are off the line. They're not on patrol at the border anymore. Because they're in centers, processing family groups, changing diapers, making baby formula, driving people to the airport at taxpayer expense, and flying to the city of their choice. Understand that. This administration lets them in, does not detain them, puts them on an airplane at your expense to go to the city of their choosing. This isn't mismanagement. This isn't incompetence. This is on purpose, this is by design. When Joe Biden ran for president, during the campaign, I wrote an op-ed for FoxNews.com. I said, if Joe Biden wins the presidency, we lose the border. Simply because of the promises he was making. Moratorium on deportation, anti-ICE detention, amnesty, DACA, free health care. Who the hell wouldn't want to come to the greatest country on earth if you're guaranteed not to be arrested, detained, or removed and get a job? Secretary Mayorkas quickly followed his lead and came as the first Secretary of Homeland Security that has failed to enforce the law on the border, as a matter of fact, violating standing statute. I've said for over a year, Secretary Mayorkas needs to be impeached. On day one, we take back the House. Now, Speaker McCarthy Said a couple weeks ago during a speech he didn't plan on impeaching anybody. And I said at the time, if he doesn't, he needs to leave too. If they can impeach Donald Trump and make a phone call to Ukraine, you mean you can't impeach Alejandro Mayorkas, whose failure on the border has resulted in over 100,000 Americans dying? Over 1,400 migrants have died on U.S. soil. Over 116 known suspected terrorists have snuck in this country and got arrested. Over 1 million recorded gotaways. Secretary Mayorkas needs to be impeached. Now, finally, McCarthy said today, when he's doing a speech down the border, I actually did a Fox show this afternoon on that, saying that he wants Mayorkas to resign. If he doesn't resign, they're going to start oversight hearings and see if they got enough evidence for impeachment. Well, I can tell you right now, there's plenty of evidence, and I'll be witness number one. And there's several colleagues of mine that work for the Trump administration be more than happy to be witness in the impeachment hearing. We can clearly show not only has he ignored the law, he's violated the law. He violated the oath of office he took. This country is less safe under his command. Every month's a record. Every month's a record. He has failed for the past 19 months. If he's a CEO of a company, he'd been fired by now. Well, we need to fire him. He needs to go. And President Biden should be a close second because he has done nothing. He hasn't even been to the border. So let me tell you why I'm pissed off. People said for a long time President Trump was a racist. Tom Homan, you're a racist. Because we enforce immigration laws in the United States. We're inhumane. Our policies are inhumane. Such as zero tolerance. I went at it with members of Congress over zero tolerance. AOC, moron. She doesn't get it. And the people that raise hell over zero tolerance, when I was a police officer in New York, we used zero tolerance on DUIs on holiday weekends. Zero tolerance on prostitution. Zero tolerance on drug sales. What was happening at the border at the time was outrageous. Numbers were historic at the time, so there was zero tolerance. Crossing the border illegally is a crime. It's in the statute, Title 8, United States Code 1325. I prosecuted many people for it in my day. So I said, let's start prosecuting them. Well, when you prosecute an illegal alien for illegal entry, he goes to U.S. Marshal's custody. Child with him can't go. They're going to be separated. Just like I did when I was a police officer in New York. I arrested a U.S. citizen parent, and guess what? That family got separated. But Democrats want a different set of rules for migrants. You can't separate them when you charge them for a crime. Why the hell not? The same people that are against zero tolerance don't mind ripping a baby out of a woman's womb and killing it. They're fine with that. That's a separation is acceptable. But when you separate somebody for violating the law and prosecuting, it's not acceptable. I say bullshit. Illegal crossings went down 25% within a week. Sad it was. No one wants to see a separation. But our border is important. And let me tell you where our border is right now. Record illegal immigration. Last year, 1.7 encounters. This year, 2.3. That's 4 million since Joe Biden's been president. 4 million people have crossed our border illegally. Add to that, over 1 million gotaways. People say, where'd you come up with the gotaways? Gotaways is not a guess. They're recorded. They're on video. They're on camera traffic. They're on drone traffic. And they're on sensor traffic. They're recorded crossings. However, the Border Patrol couldn't respond because 70% of them are off the line. They can't respond. So they record these people coming in as gotaways. Over 1 million gotaways. Let me share this with you. Border Patrol's arrested people from 161 different countries. Many of those countries are sponsors of terrorism. They've arrested 116 known suspected terrorists. How many of the over 1 million are terrorists? Think about that. Terrorists don't want to be arrested. They're trained how to invade law enforcement. See, obviously the 116 were morons. They got caught. The bottom line is, who are this 1 million people? Because the government's proven you cross the border, turn yourselves over to the Border Patrol agent and say asylum, you will get released and flown to the city of your choice. So who doesn't want to do that? People that don't want to be fingerprinted. People that don't want to be outed. People that are carrying fentanyl. Child predators. Gang members. Criminals. Last year, Border Patrol arrested 122 people convicted of murder crossing the border. Just murder. Sex offense is a lot harder than that. So think about that. Over 1 million people crossed this border and got away, are in this country someplace, we don't know where. That just scared the hell out of everybody. It scares the hell out of me. If they've arrested 116, how many didn't they arrest? Why didn't they want to turn themselves over to the Border Patrol to get released, flown to the city of their choice, given work authorization? Why didn't they want to get caught? I guarantee you, no one suspects terrorists have entered this country under Joe Biden. I can't tell you how many. Someday we're going to find out. It's going to be a bad day for this country. That alone is reason to impeach Mayorkas. So that's why I get pissed off every day. We handed them the most secure border in my lifetime, and they destroyed it. Getting back to the inhumanity. We're all inhumane, Trump administration. Well, let me ask you a question. Doctors Without Borders did a study saying 1/3 of women that make the journey with help of cartels get raped. 1/3. How many women weren't getting raped when 83% less were coming? How many children didn't drown in the river when 83% less were coming? How many Americans didn't die of fentanyl overdoses when the border is secure and all the agents around the line capturing that fentanyl? President Trump's policy saved lives. Call it inhumane all you want. He saved lives. A secure border saves lives. That's why I wrote the book. The book I wrote, Defend the Border, Save Lives. When you defend the border, when you secure the border, and people know there's going to be a consequence, there's going to be deterrence, they're not going to attempt it. Under President Trump, we got rid of catch and release. You cross that border, you go into detention. And that's why another reason Secretary Mayorkas needs to be indicted. Impeached. When he was Deputy Secretary in 2014, 2015 under Jay Johnson, who was the Secretary at the time under President Obama, I respect Jay Johnson. When we had 1,000 crossings a day, he called everybody in. He was mad. We got 1,000 today. Well, what the hell are we doing? This is a bad day. Now we got 7,000 to 8,000 a day. Mayorkas says it's secure, it's closed. In 2014, 2015, we had a surge. Not this big, but we had a surge. How did we stop it? We built detention facilities. We detained them until they saw a judge. The last decade, immigration court data is clear. Almost 9 out of 10 people who claim asylum at the border never get relief from U.S. courts because they don't qualify or they don't show up in court. 9 out of 10. That's why the Remain in Mexico program came into effect. I remember having a conversation with President Trump about the families coming across and the asylum claims. And we went over the data. Well, 9 out of 10 failed their case, according to immigration court. All right, then what happens then, Tom? Well, if you look at the Homeland Security Life Cycle Report, if they're a family group, 90% lose their case. Only 6% leave. 6. So President Trump looked at me and said, why the hell keep doing it? Because we never had, we had a president in the White House willing to work with Mexico. He did. He got with Mexico, said they're going to wait in Mexico for their hearing. They can still claim asylum, but they're going to be in Mexico waiting for their hearing. They can come and have their hearing. If they lose their hearing, which 90% will, we'll put them on an airplane, we'll send them home. And guess what? The border numbers went down because there was a consequence. There were these deterrents. Alejandro Mayorkas knows we stopped the crisis by building detention, holding for detention, making them see a judge, and removing them. What's Mayorkas doing now? The complete opposite. He's not detaining them. They're being released without a court date. And even if they lose a court date, ICE can't arrest them and remove them. Because Secretary Mayorkas has said being in the country illegally on its own isn't enough to be arrested. You got to commit another crime. He's doing the complete opposite of what he knows works in 2014, 2015. That's why he needs to be impeached. I've already given you about 10 reasons. He's doing this on purpose. And people say, why? Well, I think there's a couple things. Number one, I think they sold out to the progressives. Joe Biden sold out to progressives to become president. He knew he needed their support. He sold this country out and became president. Because he voted for border walls when he was senator. So didn't Barack Obama. So didn't Hillary Clinton. So didn't Chuck Schumer. They all vote for border walls. Now, border walls are a bad thing. They don't work, according to these people. Mayorkas and Biden knows exactly what they're doing. They're doing it because they sold out to progressives, and they also did it for a few other reasons. They think they're going to be future Democratic voters. Maybe. But it doesn't have to get that far, because when Joe Biden signed 90 executive orders abolishing everything we did, what else did he do? He got rid of Trump's census rule, which means these millions will be counted in the next census in sanctuary cities, which means more seats in the House for the Democrats. They perceive a future political benefit from having millions of people here to be counted. This is about their political future. They sold this country out for the political future. That's why I get pissed. I get pissed off because of things I saw in my 35 years of my career. That is happening today, right now. You know, I grew up in a small town upstate New York. I grew up milking cows. That's how you made money. In 2003, I'll tell you a story. In 2003, I was in Dallas, Texas, giving a speech to the International Chiefs of Police Association. And I get a phone call from headquarters. They kept beeping me. And it bothered me during my speech. So finally, after my speech, I answered. I said, what's going on? There's a crisis down in Victoria, Texas. We need you to hop on an Air Marine flight and get down there and run the investigation. Now, the director at the time, John Morton, knew I spent most of my career on alien smuggling, human trafficking, drug trafficking investigations on the border. So he sent me down to run the operation. So I flew down to Air Marine, got there in about an hour. Nothing but the clothes on my back. And they took me to the crime scene. Now, I'm a kid that grew up in a town with 2,500 people. Small town. Fast forward, I'm standing in the back of a tractor trailer with 19 dead people at my feet. It's going to be my investigation. Shocking, to say the least. When I walked up the tractor trailer, there was already a couple bodies on the ground outside the tractor trailer, because when the doors finally opened, people rushed out to get air, and several of the dead bodies were pushed out. But most of the bodies were inside the tractor trailer, down in their underwear, trying to escape the heat. Coroner believes the heat got to be 175 to 180. Now think about this for a moment. 19 people in a steel box, pitch black, can't breathe, 175 degrees. It's so horrible. They get down their underwear looking for some relief, only to go on the steel floor and get burned. When I first walked out the back of the tractor trailer, I looked back there before I got in, and I noticed a little boy. Turned out he was 5 years old. That baked to death in the back of the tractor trailer. Over him was a big man who obviously was holding him, consoling him. It was his father who died soon after. When the crime scene photographer got there, I was instructing him on what pictures I needed. And I told him to stay away from the boy, because I couldn't handle it at the time. Because as a seasoned investigator, I knew what his last hour of life was like. That little boy suffered. Matter of fact, later on in the investigation, several witnesses said that his last words were, "Daddy, I'm dying." He cried. "Daddy, I'm dying. Help me." There's nothing his dad could do. They're locked in a steel box. His dad put him there. That was running through my head while I was doing the crime scene investigation, and I couldn't go near the child at the time because I had a 5-year-old son at the time. I'm a big, tough guy. That brought me down to basic humanity, that I couldn't handle it. So finally at the end, I said, okay, let's do the child. And before we took pictures, I knelt down beside the child and put my hand on his head and said a prayer for him, asking God to have mercy on his soul, because I knew what the child went through. I've done this way too many times. I didn't leave Victoria, Texas for a couple months. We put 14 of those traffickers in jail, in prison. Some for the rest of their lives. That's the only satisfaction I got out of that. I put a lot of people in prison. But I'll never forget the image that I saw that day. And if members of Congress would see that image, they'd understand me. So the people that say Homan, he's too far to the edge, he's racist, no, wear my shoes for 34 years, see what I see, and you'd be pissed off too. Matter of fact, one of the times I testified in front of Congress, a Congressman Garcia out of Chicago, it's on YouTube. YouTube made me famous over this hearing, but he insulted me about, under my leadership, how people died. And have I ever held a dying child in my arms? Because I don't care about dying children unless they're white. What he should have did is research, because I've held many dying children, and I lit them up. When he went there, I said to myself, I know enough of this shit. and I lit them up on national TV. I spent my career saving lives, sir. And I saved a lot of them. I don't care what color they are. The men and women of ICE, the men and women of the Border Patrol save lives. And now the Border Patrol is being attacked every day by not only the President, but the Secretary of Homeland Security, who attacked the Horse Patrol for doing nothing wrong. When the Horse Patrol, that video came out, I stood and I watched it on TV. It took me about 5 seconds to say, they did nothing wrong. I wasn't a Border Patrol. They acted within their authority. They acted as they were trained. The horses acted as they were trained. That's the same way horses in Times Square act for crowd control. They did everything exactly right. But because the Biden administration getting their asses beat up over the border, they had to change the dynamics. They got to change the talking point here. So let's concentrate on racist Border Patrol and forget about the 15,000 Haitians under the bridge. Let's change the discussion now. Let's attack the men and women of the Border Patrol. That was disgusting. And then later came out, Secretary Mayorkas knew they were innocent, but still went to the White House podium and slandered them in front of the entire world. You know those men still aren't back to work? They're still on the beach waiting for some sort of, they've been found innocent and whipping, but now they're looking at some sort of administrative charges because this administration doesn't want to admit they were wrong. Rather than calling these men up and apologizing to them, they got to find something. And they'll find something. Did we use a bad word? Was it too aggressive? They'll find something, mark my word. Another reason Mayorkas needs to be impeached. You don't throw the people under the bus who put their lives on the line for this country every day, strap a gun to their hip, put a Kevlar vest on, stand on the line, and they do their job. They do what you tell them to do to enforce the law. Then you attack them? These men, your wives, your children were bullied in school and churches. Can you imagine being a Border Patrol agent, a frontline agent, going home that night, and the President of the United States said, you whip black people and you will pay. Those men didn't deserve that. This administration doesn't give a shit about the men and women in green. They've proven that. They've abandoned them. And that one incident sickens me. I actually went through a checkpoint about 2 months ago. I was in Texas doing a documentary on the book. I went through a checkpoint. Agent recognized me, called me the Iceman. Would you go in? We got shift change. You go say hi to the guys. They love to see you. Boost their morale. I don't get you in trouble, man. The White House knows you're doing this. Please go. I went in there, a whole bunch, and walked up smiling and looking for some sense of hope. And I told them, hang on. 2 more years. Hang in there. We'll get this back. And we'll let you get back to doing your job and protecting this great nation. The men and women Border Patrol saved over 18,000 lives last year, pulling people out of the river, finding abandoned toddlers in the desert. 18,000 lives were saved. President Biden's first speech as he became president, at the end of the speech, he said that the last administration watched children starve to death on the banks of the Rio Grande River and did nothing about it, let them die. That's the commander-in-chief, talking about the men and women in green who saved lives every day on the border. I was down on one border trip. Smugglers bring this boat across with a family group. Border Patrol starts approaching them in their boat. So out of fear of being arrested, what do you think he did? He threw a 2-year-old in the water. Threw a baby in the water. Because he knew the Border Patrol would stop pursuing him and go after that child. When I was down in Berks County, I met with a doctor who told me a story about an African family who came across the border. A man, his wife, and an 18-month-old baby. Little girl. The medical examiner did the autopsy. That little girl was sodomized numerous times by the criminal cartels. That little girl was sodomized in every opening of her body. That's why I'm pissed. They're animals. And this administration empowered them. President Trump had this pretty much taken care of We saved a lot of lives. A lot less children are being sexually assaulted, less women being sexually assaulted. In Berks County, they show me pictures of rape trees. The cartels will rape the women, hang their panties in a tree. There'd be hundreds of pairs of panties in a tree as a trophy. This is what you don't hear about. This is why this is important. This is why it's disgusting what this administration is doing. And they want to call it Trump policies. We're inhumane. You have opened the border up, and part of the cartels are making more money now in alien smuggling, sex trafficking women, drug smuggling they ever made in the history of the cartels. That's why there's so much violence in Mexico. They're fighting each other over controlling the plazas. No one celebrated this last election more, and President Biden became president. No one celebrated that more than the criminal cartels in Mexico because they knew they were back in business. President Trump pretty much put them out of business. The strongest nation in the world, the United States of America, does not have operational control of our southern border. It's just not my opinion. I've talked to several chief patrol agents who told me we can't contain what's coming across. We're overwhelmed. One chief patrol agent used the term broken arrow. We don't know what the hell's coming across because we're only catching about 30%. Think about that. Our southern border is controlled by the criminal cartels of Mexico. How many non-suspected terrorists have crossed? How many fentanyl loads have gotten across? How many child rapists, how many criminals, how many gang members have come across? All because this administration wanted to open the border up because they perceive a future political benefit down the road. That's why I'm pissed. I'm pissed every day I get up. My wife told me, you need to go back to work. I said, I told President Trump, he comes back, I come back, and I'll come back in a heartbeat. I'll go back for free because I'm so pissed off. I take it personal because of what I've seen in my career. And I hope you take it personal too. I didn't stand up here to try to make you sad. I try to stay up here telling stories, I'm hoping to move you. I'm hoping that you understand when you leave here tonight and you can tell a friend, several friends, what you heard here tonight. This is what's happening on the border right now. A child is going to die on the border tonight. Several women are being raped by the cartels on the border tonight. The criminal cartels have sent a group of 200 people in one area to overwhelm the little border patrol agents left on the border so they move the fentanyl to the unguarded portions of the border. That's going to kill more of our young Americans. Tonight. Every day I look at the videos from Fox News of everything going on the border. I just don't see people come across. I just don't see illegal immigration. I see disease. I see crime. I see overdose deaths. I see rapes. I see murder. And this administration, what have they done about it? Someone answer me. What has this administration done to slow the flow? Nothing. Everything this administration done, Mayorkas has done, is send more people to the border, more agents to the border, to do what? To process quicker and release quicker. Because the optics of 15,000 Haitians under the bridge was a bad day. If there doesn't appear to be overcrowding, then there's no crisis. Then he can keep saying the border's closed, the border's secure. That's the only thing they've done. So I can't wait for President Trump to win the nomination. I can't wait for President Trump to be president of the United States again. Because I'm going to go back. We fixed it once. We'll fix it again. This time we'll finish the job we started. And a word to the couple million that this administration has purposely released into this country. 90% lose their case. Don't get too comfortable. Someone asked me the other day, can you arrest millions of people and remove them? No, probably not. I'll give a hell of a shot. Those in the country legally have been removed. They've been ordered removed, need to be removed. No free passes. And Congress shouldn't even talk about an amnesty. You can't keep rewarding illegal behavior or illegal behavior won't stop. Stop rewarding illegal behavior. Stop the talk of amnesty. Secure the border. Save lives. Fix the immigration system. But stop rewarding illegal behavior. So, look, I'll leave it at this. You got my word. He comes back. I will come back. My wife says for the third time. They called me out of retirement once before. I actually, when President Trump made me the first director of ICE, I actually came up through the ranks, which was my proudest achievement. He called me on the day I retired. I was third in command. It was 2016, I announced my retirement because I was convinced Hillary Clinton was going to win the election. I was convinced. And after 8 years, Obama said, to hell with this, I'm out of here. So I signed a contract with a company making about 3 times as much as I made as ICE director. I was going to move on. I remember the morning after the election, I wake up, my wife looks at me and said, now what are you going to do? And I said, well, it's too late. I already announced, I already got a contract signed with this company. They're already finding my replacement, so I got to move on. The day of my retirement, January 27th, 2017, I had about 500 people. My retirement ceremony was really good. It was really emotional. I carried a badge and gun for 34 years. That day I was going to hang it up. It's emotional. That's who you become. Great event. At the end of the event, I'm outside shaking hands with people that came, and my secretary, chief of staff, came up to me and said, you have an emergency phone call in your office. My empty office. I already had my shit boxed up sitting in my garage. This is a Friday. I was starting my new job on Monday. So I went up, and it was DHS Secretary John Kelly. He said, Tom, I know this is bad timing, but the president wants you to stay and run the agency, which would be a 3-step promotion. And I said, well, sir, it's bad timing. I just retired. He goes, no, you didn't. Paperwork's on my desk. I haven't signed anything yet. You're not free to go. And I said, well, I already signed a contract with this company. I don't know what my legal ramifications are, and I need to talk to my family. I've moved my family 5-6 times across this country for this job. My wife's finally happy. I'm getting out. No more protesters in front of the house on Sunday morning. I said, I got to talk to my family. I got to talk to this company. And he said, okay, well, it's Friday. I'll call you Monday morning, 0600. I need an answer. And the last thing he said to me, John Kelly, who, people have their opinion of John Kelly. I think he's an American hero. I don't like the way he left the administration, but he served in the Marine Corps for 4 decades, gave a son, died, served in the Marine Corps. So I think he's a hell of a patriot. But he says, I'll leave you with this thought. So the last words, word for word, he said to me, Tom, the President of the United States wants you, a career law enforcement officer, to stay a little bit longer. He needs your help. Talk to you on Monday. So on the way home, my wife said, what's the phone call about? And I told her, she says, hell no, you're not going back. I said, the President of the United States is asking me. She goes, I don't like the President. And she didn't. She's his biggest fan now because she saw what he did for this country in 4 years. So Sunday night, she asked me, what are you going to say tomorrow morning? I said, what do you think I'm going to say? She goes, you're going to go back. I know you will. And I support you. So the next morning, John Kelly called and said, okay, let's go. I'm ready. Let's do this. The next day, I was on Air Force One, the greatest president of my lifetime, Donald Trump. First time I met him. And what a great leader he was. Tom, he'd done this for 30-some years. Do what you do best. Enforce the law. Secure the border. And those were my marching orders. He didn't give me specifics on what to, he says to do it. And that's a great thing about him. He put career law enforcement officers in a position of power. When I took the helmet ice, I had 20,000 men and women working for me. I never asked a single one of them to do anything that I didn't do myself when I was an agent. That's what made Trump great. He talked to the experts. He brought in the experts and said, do what you do best. Not some political, they didn't make somebody a director that worked a campaign, some lawyer someplace, they owe a favor to, okay, I'll give you this agency. That's the way it always goes. President Trump relied on the experts. And that's why I take a bullet for the guy and I'll go back work for him in a heartbeat. For those who don't like what Trump's saying recently, well, get used to it. He's still the same Trump. And for you to say, you can't talk bad about DeSantis. If DeSantis wants one for president, he's getting a taste of what's going to happen during the primary. You got to admit, President Trump says what he thinks. A lot of people think something, they're too afraid to say it. He says it. Sometimes to his detriment. But I'm a Trump guy. I'll be with Trump next week. And I'll make the same commitment to him because he always asks me, are you sure you're coming back? I said, I'll come back for free. And he told me, he said, well, you might want to take the paycheck, Tommy. The paycheck's there, you might as well take it. I'm committed to the man. He did more to security board than anybody in my lifetime, and I'll go back work for him again. So I hope you support him. He will win the nomination. No one can beat him. And of all the presidents I worked for, 6 of them, no one did more to secure this border, protect first responders, rebuild the military than President Donald Trump. With that, I'm going to shut up. I appreciate your hospitality. First time in Kentucky. I expected a bottle of bourbon, didn't get one. So anyways, thank you.